Okay, so starting with chapter 5, we're going to talk about something called algebraic expressions. Okay, now at the very end of last semester, we, especially getting ready for the final, there was a certain problem that kept popping up. I think it was part of most missed in all my classes that discussed, and it just led to our discussion of what is the difference between an expression and an equation. So just a little recap. Remember, equation has the word almost like the word equal in it, right? We talked about that. And meaning that an equation has an equal sign. An expression you can think of a couple of different ways. It is a problem that doesn't have an equal sign, or you can even think of it as like a problem that is like half of an equation, one of the halves, okay, on one side of the equal sign. But that's what we're talking about. Now, what you haven't probably realized, and this is something that might be a little new, is that first word, that adjective right there, and that word algebraic. Okay, well, that's what we're going to kind of talk about right now. Is we're going to see algebraic expressions, which we want to talk about. Well, what does it mean? We know what an expression is, but what does it mean to be an algebraic expression? All right, so we're going to talk about that. But let's start with a word that probably looks familiar to you. The word, everyone, is variable. Everyone? Variable. All right, so here's what the book says. Now, I have to warn you guys, right? Some of these book definitions are decent, but others, a lot of them are regular book definitions. They're very hard to understand. So make sure that we're doing our examples in our little box properly and kind of asking questions if you have them. So here's what the book says a variable is. It's a symbol that represents an unknown quantity. A symbol that represents an unknown quantity. Okay, so here is what I want you guys to write down in your little box over there. And don't write it in lowercase. I think it was just an autocorrect on the PowerPoint slide. So X would be a variable. The letter A is a variable. Okay? Remember, we've seen variables before this year. It's just a letter. Okay? But what it means by symbol, of course, in this case, I mean, most of the time it's a letter, at least in 7th grade. It says that it represents an unknown quantity. Well, quantity is basically a number. So it's a letter that represents a number. That's what it is. Okay? And it's a number that we don't know. All right, now that we've talked about variable, let's get into what this lesson's really about. And that is algebraic expression. Everyone? Algebraic expression. All right, so here is what the book says an algebraic expression is. It's an expression that contains a variable, numbers, and at least one operation. An expression that contains variables, numbers, and at least one operation. So we already know variables are letters, right? I'm hoping that you guys know what numbers are. And it says at least one operation. Remember, operations, the basic 4 operations. Okay, addition, subtraction, multiplication, or division. Okay, so an algebraic expression, we talked about what an expression is, but algebraic, of course, now we've seen expressions with numbers and operations, but now, of course, it's algebraic if it has variables in it. So here's some examples. Okay, and you could write this in lowercase as well. Okay, n plus 2. If you take a look, right, it has variable, has a number, it has an operation of addition. That would be an algebraic expression. Over here, take a look here, 4x. Just a little reminder, right? We have a number 4, we have a variable x. They're right next to each other, so that is the operation of multiplication. So there's multiplication there. Or, a little more complicated, not much, but 3 times, and then in parentheses, p minus 5. 3 times, and then in parentheses, p minus 5. So we have numbers, the 3 and the 5. We have the variable p, and then we also have a couple of operations. Subtraction sign, and then because the 3 is right next to the parentheses, that's multiplication. These are all 3 different examples of algebraic expressions. Now, what could be considered the root word of algebraic? All right, nicely done. And you're absolutely right. And that's actually our next word. Algebra, everyone. Algebra. Okay, so I'm going to kind of start by telling you, okay, algebra is what they consider a branch of mathematics. Okay, if you go, well, what do you mean a branch of mathematics? Well, if mathematics was a heading, the subheadings or the different types of math would be things like algebra, things like geometry, things like statistics, things like maybe calculus. All right, there's different types of math. Okay, not that they're all kind of intertwined, but they're different types of math. Well, here's what algebra is. All right, so in your notes there, this is a branch of mathematics, but here's what makes it different than the rest. It involves expressions with variables. So algebra is a branch of mathematics that involves expressions with variables. So basically, guys, if we are doing stuff that have algebraic expressions in it, we're doing algebra. That's what makes it algebra. Now, I don't have any examples here because that's a pretty clear, especially after we've talked about the last couple, that's a pretty clear definition. Okay, here comes our next word. Here we go. This next word, by the way, is, I would say, if not the most important defined word or vocab word of the second semester, it's maybe top 3. Okay, here it is. Coefficient. Everyone? Coefficient. All right, so you're going to hear this word a lot this second semester, and of course beyond 7th grade. So here's what a coefficient is. Okay, let's get this down first, and then I'll go into better detail about what it is. The book says it's the numerical factor of a multiplication expression that contains a variable. All right, probably for many of us that makes no sense, and that's okay. I'm going to define it a little bit better here in a second. A coefficient is the numerical factor of a multiplication expression that contains a variable. Okay, I want to point out three different main words in that vocab, that definition. Here we go. Numerical. First of all, numerical. Which basic word does that come from, guys? Number. Okay, I'm hoping that you know what that word is, multiplication. And then look, a variable. Those are 3 main factors when we're talking about a coefficient. A number with multiplication and a variable. So watch, in your little box off to the right, I just want you to write it for right now. I want you to write these 2 things. Go ahead and write 2v, lowercase v, 2 times v. And then go ahead and right next to it, there's another example, negative 7c. Okay, I just want to focus on 2v for a second. Take a look. Remember the 3 things that we're talking about when it comes to a coefficient? It's a number with multiplication and a variable. 2 is the number, v is the variable, and because they're right next to each other, it's multiplication. Okay? Here's what I want you to know. When it comes to the 2v, that, by the way, that's an algebraic expression. When it comes to the 2v, go ahead and take your pencil or pen and underline the 2. Ladies and gentlemen, when you have something that looks like that, 2v, the 2 is the coefficient. The coefficient, you take a look, it says it's the numerical factor. It is the number when you have a number multiplied with a variable. Notice how it's always up front. Negative 7c, underline the negative 7. That's the coefficient. Thank you, those of you that are still writing this down. So what if I take something like this? Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, what is the coefficient? Okay, you would be incorrect. Why? You have a number, you have a variable, It's on multiplication. There is no, that was a little trick question. Sorry, first day back, right? But there's no multiplication, so there is no coefficient. It has to be a number multiplied with a variable. What's the coefficient there? Yeah, now we're talking a coefficient. Okay, so it's 1 and it's always up front. All right, this is a good intro. You'll see a lot of this in tonight's homework, but we'll really get into using that coefficient in a later lesson. Okay, in this chapter. Now this is the last vocab. All right, this last vocab, it's not even a word; it's almost like a sentence. You're just going to see it like in directions, so you need to know when you see it what it means, and that is define a variable. Everyone. Define a variable. All right, so here's what you need to write down. This is what the book says it is. Choosing a variable and a quantity for the variable. Choosing a variable and a quantity for the variable to represent in an expression or equation. So this is going to look familiar because we just did a problem like this on our POD. 5w for w equals 3. They just defined the variable. They said the w is 3. So when it says something about defining a variable, that's what it's talking about. Okay, guys, questions on any of those vocab words? Okay. BJ?
What was the example for defining the variable? I can see it.
5w for w equals 3. 5w for w equals 3. Okay, guys, other questions? All right, here's what I'd like you guys to do. For the examples, all right, go ahead and just grab the homework that was passed out. Okay, it says lesson 1 homework practice up at the top, chapter 5, so 5-1 homework practice. Okay, go ahead and write your name, date, and period up at the top. Okay, now here's what I'd like you to do after you've written your name, date, and period. For this first one, I actually just want you to take your pencil and put it down. Okay, I just need eyes up here. I want you to watch me do this problem. Okay, and while I complete this problem, I just want you to watch. Don't worry, I'm going to give you guys an extra 20 seconds or so after I'm done to just copy it down. We're doing your homework assignment. I just want you to watch for right now. Okay, so what I have is it says evaluate each expression if r equals 5, s equals 2, t equals 7, and u equals 1. Ladies and gentlemen, they define the variables right up in the directions. Sometimes they'll be in the problem, kind of like our example, but sometimes it's in the directions. Okay, so you have to pay close attention to that. All right, here we go. Let's check out problem number 3. So I have 3t plus 1. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. To solve this problem, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to write parentheses where the variable was. So instead of 3t plus 1, it's 3 parentheses plus 1. I'm going to then turn around and plug in the number. T is equal to 7, so I'll plug in 7. Then what I'm going to do after that is follow the order of operations. I need to do the multiplication first, so that is 21. After I do all the multiplication, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rewrite the problem. In this case, I then turn around and do the next order of operation, which in this case is just addition. And I have simplified it all the way down, so there's my answer. Now listen, it probably took me 20 seconds or around 20 seconds to solve that problem with me talking it out while I'm solving it. Bottom line is that I probably could have done it in about 10 seconds, 10 to 15 seconds. And more than likely, I didn't do any kind of math here, computation. All of you guys should have been able to do 3 times 7 just about as fast as I did it. 21 plus 1, same thing, probably just as fast as I did it. So So it's not like I'm Mr. Speed Demon, right? Like, you guys can handle doing it that fast. Here's what I want to point out to you. I just spent, realistically, let's say 15 seconds doing this problem if I didn't have to talk it out. 15 seconds by showing everything that I'm going to require you to show on homework. Now, there's going to be some problems that it could be a little faster. There's some problems that are going to be a little longer. But I would say that's almost the average problem on this page. 15 seconds. Doing what I want you to do. Now, the reason why I'm going into this is because if you noticed, I used parentheses. If you noticed, after solving part of it, I rewrote it and then solved more. Okay? And it still only took me 15 seconds to solve this problem. Okay? So, there's absolutely no reason why you guys should not be doing the work like this. Okay? So, it's very simple. But, guys, things like parentheses you will need to do in your homework if you want to get it correct. I care about the answer, but I actually care more about the work. Because these kind of problems and those parentheses are crucial for later on in later math. Okay, so make sure, guys, that you do that. All right, so I'm going to walk you through the steps here in a second. Let me give you guys the 20 seconds I promise you. Go ahead and copy that down really quickly. Copy that down. Okay, I do understand that this work, it takes up some space. So I just want to point this out, okay? You can do it all on another piece of paper. Just make sure you stay organized, all right? So when we correct it, everyone can see the problem and with the work and the answer. You can use the back of the page. You can actually do like odds on the front and evens on the back if you want, okay? I don't care how you do it. Just make sure that you show your work and you give yourself some space, okay? All right, with that said, here's what I want to do. All right, let's go ahead and let's take a look at problem number 9. Okay, for problem number 9, here we go. Step 1. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and up above step 1, I'm going to write these little mini parentheses. This is because for step 1, remember, I want you to rewrite the problem putting parentheses where the variables are. So instead of 4r minus 10s, it is 4 parentheses minus 10 parentheses. Okay. Step 2. I'm going to go ahead and write a little number sign because for step 2, we're going to put the numbers into the parentheses. So the numbers in. So here we go. So next to the 10 was the S. I look up here. S was 2, so I put in a 2. Over here, 4R, well, the R up here was 5, so I'm going to plug in a 5 into my parentheses. Okay, now, step 3. I could say simplify, but there's something more important when you're simplifying. Guys, you have to follow the correct order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, PEMDAS. Okay, follow the correct order of operations. Remember, multiplication and division is done at the same time, so is addition and subtraction. So here we go. Now, I do want to point one other thing out, and this is extremely important, especially this second semester. I don't want to see work all over the place. Even though I've done it plenty of times, people still are not doing it. Well, now is the time that you have to do it. And that is, we need to work down or work downwards. Show your work going down. Okay, that's how you'll need to stay organized when simplifying expressions, solving equations. Okay, so in this case, I'm going to do, let me go back and do this. Parentheses, there's nothing to solve inside parentheses. There's no exponents in here. However, there is multiplication and division, just multiplication. I'm going to do it left to right. So 5 or 4 times 5 gives me 20. And then there's actually one more set of multiplication here. 10 times 2 is also going to give me 20. Now I'm going to do step 4. Now, step 4 is also extremely important to get your answer is right on tonight's homework, and that is rewrite the problem. So I solved like all my multiplication. Now whatever I didn't solve, I need to rewrite. Now on this problem, right, the only thing that's lacking is the subtraction sign. I'll bring it down. But rewrite it. Now comes the last step, and this is an easy step, and that is I'm going to go ahead and repeat step 3 and step 4 until the problem is done. Meaning I go back to step 3 and I go ahead and follow my order of operations. So in this case, right, this is the end. I'm going to just do my subtraction, which is 20 minus 20 to get my answer. There's nothing to rewrite because it's simplified. So I don't have to keep repeating it up past that. Okay, questions on problem number 9. Okay, here's the problem I want you guys to try out. Okay, I want you to try out problem number 8 right next to it. Problem number 8. I'll check in with you guys in about 30 seconds. Go. Okay, how many of you still need more time? Okay, I'll give you guys about 15 more seconds there. Those of you that are finished, go ahead and start with number 1 and number 2. Make sure you go through the steps. They're easy, but make sure you still do the steps. Okay, so here's what I'd like you guys to do. Okay? When you share with your partner, I actually want one person, whoever's starting off, I want you to show them your paper and explain the problem and the answer by your paper. Those of you that are listening, being the listeners, I want you to check 2 things. I want you to check and make sure that you used parentheses, remind them if they didn't, and make sure that they're working downwards, which working downwards would mean that they would also have to be rewriting their problem every step of the way. Okay, so parentheses and working downwards. All right, so 30 seconds. Turn to your neighbor and share. Go.
You have to work with him. Mr. Wilkins, 2 people have 3. Does he just work with him?
You can more than likely, though, it's easier for you 3 to work together, and then you turn over those 3. That way you don't have to move or anything else, and it's quicker. All right. Thank you, those of you who shared. All right, so here we go. Number 8, it's 6 plus 3u. Okay, so here's what you should have done is we rewrite the problem, 6 plus, but instead of the u, I'm going to put parentheses. Then I plug the number in. The u was 1. Now, guys, this next step, you actually, on this particular problem, you could have done it wrong and coincidentally gotten the right answer. Please be careful, okay? So listen carefully. If you added 6 plus 3, you did it wrong. You will always get the wrong answer about 99% of the time. This is that 1% where you could have coincidentally gotten the right answer. Okay? What you should have done is following order of operations. After knowing there's no parentheses or exponents, the multiplication is right here. 3 times 1 gives you 3. So you should have done that first. When you rewrite it, you bring your 6 and your addition sign down. And then 6 plus 3 gives you 9. Okay? No more repeating step 3 and 4. Any questions on that one? Okay, I have one more type of problem to go over with you guys. It's problem number 15. Okay, don't freak out. Yes, it's a fraction, but realistically, it's a division problem. Okay? And here's how we're going to do this kind of problem. If you take a look, Step 1. We're actually going to do the numerator and the denominator as separate problems. So step 1, I'm going to go ahead and simplify the numerator. What that means is I have in parentheses 3 plus u squared. I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it 3 plus parentheses squared. The u is 1, so I'm going to plug in my number. Following order of operations, I'm going to do what's in the parentheses, which are those outside parentheses. 3 plus 1 is 4. I'm going to rewrite my problem, so I'm going to bring down my parentheses and my exponent. And now I have an exponent. 4 squared, remember, is repeated multiplication. 4 times 4 gives me 16. Now, step 2. We're going to do the same thing with the denominator. Now, you're in luck because the denominator in this problem, there is no problem, right? It's already simplified for you. It's 8.
Welcome back, and just a quick reminder, today, JV basketball, JV girl basketball, and JV boy basketball is canceled today. 7th grade girls soccer is canceled today. 7th grade boys soccer is canceled today. 8th grade boys soccer is canceled today. 8th grade girls soccer, you will meet with Coach Vogt in room 113. Again, all JV basketball, boys and girls practices are canceled today. 7th grade girls soccer is canceled. 7th grade boys soccer is canceled. 8th grade boys soccer is canceled. And 8th grade girls soccer, you will meet with Coach Vogt in room 113.
Okay, going right where we left off. So we have our numerator, which is 16. We have our denominator, which is 8. I set my fraction back up, and now it's just a division problem. Ladies and gentlemen, 16 divided by 8 is 2. And there's our answer. Now, 16 through 18, guys, are decimals. Please show your work the same way. If there's long multiplication or division or whatever, you can use calculators, but you still need to show your work. And number 9 is a word problem, but if you read it carefully, it's just almost as easy as any of these. Okay? All right. Algebraic expressions.